Hey, Nation, Chris Kewitt here with Dog News Daily, presented by DoMyOwn.com. DoMyOwn.com is your official source for lawn care, home and garden, and pest control needs. Actually, I just placed my order here this week for some pre-emergent, trying to get my yard game day ready. Placed the order, showed up just a few days later, fast, free shipping. And next thing you know, I'm DIYing like a pro. My yard's going to be weed free, and we're going to be ready to enjoy it all fall and next spring as well. So go over to domyown.com, place your order today. We are, dog fans. It's week 2. Georgia didn't have much of a test here week 1 against Austin Peay. Definitely played a lot more players than a lot of us probably thought. 82 players actually out of 105 played last Saturday. To give you some perspective on that, this week when they go to South Carolina, only 70 players can make a road trip. So more played on Saturday than played than they can even go on this trip to Columbia. Another way to put this into perspective, all of 2017, Georgia didn't play 82 games. So that's something to think about there. I mean, Georgia's not even going to, is a lot of these players won't play much more. They'll play against UMass probably with that red shirt rule. The coaches do have a little bit of leniency, see what they got out there, and see who can be capable on that depth chart, making that, maybe a second and third spot for them. So, what we expected against Austin Peay, the game got out of hand by halftime. They ended up shutting the game down in the fourth quarter. Not shutting the game down, but cutting it short 5 minutes. They had played a 10-minute period in there in the fourth quarter. I think it was after the second or third Austin Peay player had gotten injured, and they actually went to the refs and tried to actually get a running clock, but that's against NCAA rules now, and now that's they just cut it down to a 10-minute quarter here. Go Dogs. So we're on to week 2. Here we go. We actually got on dognewsdaily.com this week. I posted it this morning, finished up the article last night. This is our 3 and out report we're going to do weekly. This is just kind of giving you 3 either players or position groups that we're going to be looking for to make a difference really in that week, or maybe that's someone that's going to be tested in the upcoming week, and who we're going to keep our eyes on. So going into a hostile environment into Columbia, this is a tough test for UGA. It's probably the biggest game on South Carolina's calendar, or on their schedule this year. If it's not on the road, it's not Georgia's biggest game, but it's very telling. Last year we actually got to play them mid-year, so they had a little bit of stuff time underneath their belt. Played some games. They were 6-2 going into that game. We're 8-0. Here we are again playing in the second game of the season. That old pesky Spurrier used to love playing us the second game of the year because we always had someone suspended. Fortunately enough, we got everyone healthy. Godwin looks like he's suited back up to play this week. And looks like Tyreek McGee is questionable. I'm going to say he's doubtful, but he is out there running full speed in practice here this week. Back to that 3 and out report. Here are the 3 positions that we believe here at Dog News Daily are going to be the most significant groups to watch. They're going to be the difference in the game. If these 3 groups show up and show out, there's not an issue in the score. I think it's a 2-touchdown game. First off is offensive line, right? We're bigger. We're more talented on that line. We're actually about a 40-pound at a 40-pound average 40-pound advantage over South Carolina's defensive line. That's a lot of meat, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of big boys, and we're going to be trying to lean on those guys, press on those guys, and grind it out. South Carolina is now playing an up-tempo game. Georgia's going to want to slow the ball down, or slow the game down. Run the ball. Georgia's kind of limited running between the tackles. Swift can do it. Holyfield can do it. But Georgia is, Zamir White's out. So, Georgia's going to use Holyfield to pound up the middle, and then they're going to attack the edges with Harrion and Swift, and then you'll get Cook back in the second half. He's being held out the first half due to their targeting call on a punt return where he was playing special teams. So, unfortunately, we won't have him, but we'll have some fresh legs there in the second half. It's going to be a hot one in Columbia. So the offensive line, they're going to need to keep Fromm clean. I expect him to pass a little bit more than he usually would. South Carolina's defensive backs are, and their secondary is actually something to go after for Georgia. Robertson, D-Rob got a handoff last week. I expect him to be a little bit more in the passing game, but with Ridley, we have Godwin, Cole, and the others are going to be there. I expect a lot of passing yards in this game from the Bulldogs, and then in the second half, expect them to pound to run it down their throats and try to run the ball as efficiently and as much as possible. The second group we're really going to look at, and it's actually on the other side of the ball, and that is the linebackers and the secondary. First off, we'll start off with the linebackers. Perceived by the nation, up the middle is where the Bulldogs defense is the weakness. I didn't say this, but if you read a lot of the national prognosticators, a lot of the media, they think the Georgia defense is to be had there. You miss Roquan Smith, so obviously you're taking a hit from the previous year. That's just no doubt. But when you get Natrez Patrick, Monty Rice there in the middle, you're going to see some other guys. Jawan Taylor played a good bit in the first week. You'll get maybe Quay Walker, but you're going to have a lot of guys right there up the middle that are going to have to really stop the run and force them into passing. You can't get gashed and be so worried about all these a spread offense and the go offense, and next thing you know, they're just dinking and dunking with runs up the middle. 5-10 yards. So they're gonna have to play strong. Julian Rochester, Tyler Clark are gonna have to be strong and be ready here this week. The other linebackers, DeAndre Walker, he's gonna have to be a beast. He is a beast, but he's gonna have to be in South Carolina's backfield all day. He's going to have to be causing havoc, putting pressure on Bentley. Bentley's the kind of quarterback, if you guys aren't familiar with South Carolina, he plays elite ball against subpar teams, against teams like Georgia, against teams like Auburn. Some of the better defenses that he faces, he struggles. He's the kind of quarterback that wants to force the ball, and because he is a good player, he's got a good arm, but he tries to make plays with his arms, and sometimes I can get him in trouble, especially if he's under pressure. I don't compare him that much to Stidham, but Stidham is very similar. If you put pressure on him, he doesn't like to get hit. He's going to force the ball, and next thing you know, he's turning his head a good bit and trying to fire out that ball, and that means mistakes on the offensive side for the Gamecocks. So we're expecting a lot of pressure to be put on Jake Bentley. It'll be interesting to see if they can run the ball against the Bulldogs. I already mentioned the linebackers, the secondary. They're going to be tested. Deebo Samuel's wide receiver for South Carolina. Kirby Smart calls him the most underrated player in the nation. Doesn't get a lot of views. He was hurt last year. I think he broke his leg third game. Had an injury. I think it's broken leg. Third game of the year last year and was out. The Bulldogs did not face him. The Gamecocks like to use him in many different formations in the slot. Actually use him as a running back. Just finding different ways to get him the ball. So it'll be a big test for Natrez Patrick, for the linebackers, to keep an eye on him, make sure where he is at all times. Our preseason All-American DeAndre Baker, he's not really a follow around the best player guy and hey, you got him all day. He usually lines up on that left side and it's one-on-one. So if Deebo gets over on that side, they'll have a lot of matchups. I'm not sure how many matchups we'll see. They're probably not going to try to put their best player on our best defender, but Tyson Campbell's going to be on the other side. He is definitely fast enough. He's definitely talented enough. He's definitely got the size and speed. But I expect some help there. I expect help with DeAndre Baker as well. I'm not sure there's really a corner in the nation that can cover him one on one. So guys like J.R. Reed, LeCount, they'll be very important in helping out with anything over the top. They have another player, a true freshman last year. He's actually, so he'll be a sophomore this year. Smith, I think he's number 18. He hit the Bulldogs up a little bit last year for some plays, and he's definitely another talented wide receiver. So the secondary is going to have their hands full, something that they're going to have to keep an eye on and limit as many big plays as they can. Third and final in the 3-and-out report. I went over all the positions here this week, and just this one kept on coming up, and it's quarterback. And Jake Fromm and Justin Fields and how that dynamic works. That's something that when you look at that, you go, wow, they I don't think they don't tinker around too much in this game and putting these guys in and out. I think you see Fields, just prediction. I think you see Fields one series in the first half, one series in the second half. And that's really in the second half, it's really just depending on how the game goes. I think Fromm gets majority of the snaps. I think the way Georgia is going to want to play football, it's going to be running the ball, moving the chains, and and making the plays where you need to, throw when you have to. I expect Fromm to throw once again a little bit more than last year, but probably not as much as we don't want the same to be a track meet. We want the same. We want to grind it out. We want to grind on them, push on them. It's going to be hot there in Columbia. So I expect a strong run game. At least that's going to be the point of emphasis. Now I can see Fields getting in that game with the offensive stalls out. The offense has an issue with moving the chains. Maybe just an upstart. For the Bulldogs. So that is something that I can see by Georgia of inserting Fields and him using his legs. He's a talented thrower as well, and he looked pretty good against Austin Peay. I think he was 7 of 8, 60 something yards. So I had a good game. Was unscathed and didn't have any blemishes on as for interceptions or fumbles. So that's something to see. He's a young guy. A lot of young guys for the Bulldogs actually playing in Columbia. That's something when I go and look now here at the game prediction and what we predict the score is going to be. That's something that we factor in all the time is young kids 18 to 21 years old and how their emotions affect them. Uh, there's the game 2012 we're up there. It is we get absolutely boat raced 35-7. I think the game is 35-0. We score with like a minute left. Just running this just running in the end zone there real quick. Forget who the running back was, but he wasn't a starter. I mean, the Bulldogs were overwhelmed. The game was over in the second quarter. So that's something that you could tell the crowd was in it. We weren't able to take the crowd out. I think there was a punt block or a punt return in that game, if I can recall. So that's something that the Bulldogs are going to have to come out and be physical, run the ball, and take the crowd out of the game. If they can get some turnovers and really expose South Carolina for being overhyped, they are pumped up. This is a game that's circled on their schedule. It probably has been since last fall. Muschamp mentioned in his post-game press conference last year, he said the only difference between the two teams were the running backs, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. Georgia's certainly added more talent this past offseason with all the recruits that they've brought in and the 2 grad transfers. But I just don't see a game where if Georgia plays clean, it's that close of a game. I expect the emotions to be high. I expect the first half for it to be a close game. But I think barring any fluky things happening, I think UGA has more talent. I think they have more depth. Once again, I said it's 3:30. It's going to be a hot game up there in Columbia. You can see some of the effects last week of how hot it was in Athens. It's only hotter in Columbia. I think it's the hottest place on earth. If you Wikipedia, I think Columbia, I think it calls it the armpit of hell. So it's hot. It's actually one of the hottest games I've ever been to. think it's 2007 or 8. I was there in that 14-10 game with Stafford and Noshawn, and it was miserable. It was miserable. So I think first half it's pretty close. I think Georgia pulls away the second half with the run game and just tiring the Gamecocks out. Dog News Daily, we're predicting a 27-7 victory. We think Rodrigo gets a few kicks and gets the Dogs to pull away comfortably. This can easily be a 28-10 game, but I don't see the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks will have to score 30 to beat Georgia, I believe, and it's going to be hard to keep them under 30. So I picked 27-17. The Las Vegas line that I saw was 27-17. So, or excuse me, it was a 10-point spread. So 27-17 is what we're predicting for the game. We actually have a contest for a lot of our followers on social media right now. If you can see here and see our Dog News Daily shirts, this is actually honestly a kid size. I'm not this big, but it's a Dog News Daily shirt. We also have it in red, as you can see here. Go on social media: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You need to do two things in order to win win one of these T-shirts. Okay, you have to like or share the page, not the post, the page. And then number two, predict the South Carolina Georgia game. Right? I'm putting in. I'm going in. I'm trying to win one more of these shirts. 27-17 is my prediction. So go in, like the page, share the page, not the post, and then predict the score. You win. You'll be notified on Sunday. We'll be shipping you one out here next week. So thanks again to our sponsors at domyown.com. And we root all the Bulldogs that are heading up to Columbia for the game. We hope to see you there, and as well as have safe travels. And as always, from Dog News Daily, go Dogs.